welcome back to the last sessions, and glad to reintroduce our chair for today, Conrad. Thank you again, by the way, for chairing today.
You're very welcome. My pleasure, Michael. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, which I did mention already early this morning, that you could expect a very practical presentation and experience sharing around IT. So here you go with Michel de Goede, if I pronounce your name correctly, Michael. Goedemorgen, that's the easy way to remind it for me. So let me quickly introduce yourself to the group. So Michael is the owner of the Goede Digital, his own firm, and he has been a consultant for more than 30 years, covering topics from IT to risk and security, and from startups to valuation and post-merger integration. So you have done everything, Michael, from A to Z. Michael, you have been working for companies such as Alliander, IBM, Delta Lloyd, ABN AMRO, Verzekeringen, insurance, right? Sounds like insurance.
Correct.
Shell, Memorec Telex, and Parker Hannifin. Many large organizations under your clients you have worked with and for, and you have also successfully helped realize a number of merger integrations, splits, carve-outs, while always covering IT. Your focus is the IT function and all of what's hidden underneath. And you hold an international MBA from Rotterdam School of Management. And with this, I pass the ball on to you, Michael.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you, Conrad. Let's start. I have been thrown at various activities, PMI or split carve-outs, and I have always been the smart guy doing the IT stuff. And I can tell you one thing from my experience, that is that the IT stuff can really help you forward very fast, or it can make you consider a career in heavy drinking. So let's first ask a question for you. I have one question here. Please answer this one. I will wait for about 10-15 seconds, and then I will open the site with the answers. I'm really curious. Okay, you can still see the screen. There is still the code. You can still go there. The number of answers is quite low. Nevertheless, it seems to be adequate, but not many people seem to have a separate IT due diligence. For the people who say adequate, if you consider yourselves to be adequately represented for IT and due diligence, would that also mean that the results of IT are going easy and that you have them deliver what you think they will deliver? So let's continue the presentation. And we're back.
Yeah.
Now, 3 years ago, when I first was visiting this forum, I showed this slide where we saw that the information technology didn't get the attention it actually required, and there were quite a few people reporting difficulties in having IT deliver in PMI results. There was also data that said that IT was really very crucial to deliver the results and to deliver synergies in roughly 60% of cases. So I think that even by COVID today, IT has its 15 minutes of fame, and this will now have increased quite sharply, I guess. And last one, IT is also one of the bigger components in the spend of the M&A events. So you normally notice IT, be it because you're happy with it or be it because it is techy and difficult. Let me ask you one more question before we continue the presentation. Okay, I'll switch to the results page. No one here yet. Ah, there we are. Good. So we see quite a few people aiming at top-line digital innovation, which is of course quite understandable. Let's see why and how that happens. I'll go back to the presentation now. This is what happened with COVID. With the valuation of sectors, and you see that some of the very old values are now going down while some new values are sharply rising. We see media, we see up at the cost, of course, of theaters and concert halls. We see retail up at the cost of hotels and restaurants. There's all sorts of shifts in how people spend their money. Which we immediately see back in where the software money is going, because we need to work from home. We have our collaboration suites, so Microsoft is doing a lot of good business at the moment, I guess. We need to be productive, and as we don't have the data centers all available readily, we have to go to the cloud, so we have some cloud infra. And as we're also not really doing that easily, we need some IT ops who do that. And finally, as we're all working in the cloud with privacy-sensitive data, we need to have security in place to make sure that we're all working safely. So we see the results of COVID really everywhere. We also see that the shoppers are behaving differently because the online spend, just a little bit after the start of COVID, is really up very, very sharply. And even the normal brick and mortar stores were then up, but you see that online is really on a roll here. That means that the part of companies that were on the left side of the spectrum of the first slide I showed you of the valuation of sectors, they have to think about how to recover post-COVID. And the other ones that sort of get the market share and the business of the companies that are going down, they are thinking about how to make sure that they will never lose that part of market share that they just got. So for the revenue recovery companies, there's quite a few that actually consider M&A moves. But as the market is moving and the consumers are moving to digital, let's say, digital asset buying might be one of the ways forward. And we also see that there's e-commerce, there's like e-commerce. So there's quite a few things that are directly related with the digital realm. Now, to deal with that, I have made a list of things that I've noticed in practice. And there's 5 patterns that exist that will either hold you back or make you walk or make you realize your results more easily. I call mud. It will just delay you. It will just make life difficult, and it will stop you. You will need bigger budgets. You will need to think cleverly to get out. There's of course, elephant in the room that you cannot swallow in one time, that you have to think about how to deal with it and what can you do to still make your results tangible while the elephant is there. Time can work in your advantage, it can work against you, but sometimes you need a decision to do something with it. And then if you have set these 3, then you have to pick your battles based on what you found, which is the battles you need to actually end up with the results that you're aiming for. And the aim is your vector, that is the resultant vector, the direction that you will find yourself in after all the efforts. Now, to do this, there's these 6 risk strategies that you can apply. So you can ignore that there's an elephant in the room. That will only help so long. So you can accept it, you can try to reduce that if you want. So there's all sorts of methods to deal with the situation. And what I did is I have the 5 patterns. There is several ways in how they look and how they present themselves. And then there's the strategies that you are most obvious to deal with this situation. Let's start with mud. Sometimes it is just enough to be a bit clever. But if your car was in the mud until its hood, then this will not do. So let's see what is the various types of IT that you can meet in your due diligence or in your PMI efforts. One is complex. Complex is the mother of all evil in IT. It starts with a few applications here when you have a small company and then your company grows, and just like the temps are getting in, they need to work with some other specific areas and they need some more software, and then the software, of course, in the beginning has nothing to do with the other one. It will not be linked, but before you know it, you have this landscape. And that landscape is eating up all your budget in run cost because they're all interconnected. By the way, all the potential connections is the number of applications minus 1 and then the faculty of that. So if you have a landscape, for example, of 2 logistics companies merging, one with an American and one with a European base, you guess the names. One had an IT landscape of 6,000 applications, and the other one had an IT landscape of 3,000 applications. Now you go and merge that. Enjoy. That's horrible. You really have to be horribly clever to know what to do in this times 6,000. The other one is old systems. There is sometimes systems that have been built in the 80s or in the 90s when there were only 8 places for naming, and there were like very old operating systems, so you cannot have too much memory, and these systems are somewhere in the center of your operations. And everything is using the output or is putting in data, and it is a transitory sort of post in your IT landscape. If this is old, then you have the risk that it will stop, you have the risk that no one speaks the language, you have the risk that you cannot service it, you have the risk that you cannot even upgrade it to a timely something. So it will hold you back, it will eat your resources, it will keep you from moving fast. And if there is one tip, then it is, if it's old, and if you do not necessarily need it, throw it out. Just do it. The one that is also difficult, I heard quite a few people talking about, well, we have the post-merger integration, and then we sort of merge the cultures, and then we have either one label or two labels, and we make that work. The same is for IT, because IT follows people, IT follows logic, and it means that your IT, you see it here, also has to be integrated. And some companies just don't do the PMI. You can't believe it, maybe, but they simply don't do it. They will buy another company, and then they end up with the software of one company and the soft and hardware of the other one, and they both think that they're doing great, and they don't integrate the people. And then the people think, okay, we can continue as we did, and by the time you bought 5 companies, it will be a horrible mess in your IT department, and your budget is being eaten by the cost of maintenance. Now, having said that, this is the same as your house. You can look at your house from a perspective of cost. And if there is, let's say, the paint blathering from your woodwork outside, you might want to freshen it up, because otherwise the wood will rot, and then the stone and brick will rot, and your house will devalue. So that is not handy. In IT, it is the same thing. You can save a bit of money this year by not spending or not doing expenditure on servicing or on upgrades or whatever. But after 3 years of not doing upgrades, there will be a more difficult upgrade trajectory, because your stack will no longer be serviced by Microsoft or SAP or whoever. So you might want to reduce this risk. You might want to make sure that your technical debt is not big. So if you see older systems, older versions in a company that you acquire, you should be alarmed, and you should be thinking of this. You should be checking all these 6 strategies to reduce the cost of technical debt, and that it will not stop you from reaching what you aim for. Now, one of the pitfalls of IT is that everything IT, it should be done by IT. That means that if we have a new requirement for an app that will clean my car every morning because I think it is important and I need it, and I'm the customer, and by the way, I pay you, then IT will definitely spend time and effort and money on that. You cannot have that, because then your portfolio of activities will be completely overloaded with all sorts of small details, with 15 requests that ask for new software, that ask for new builds, that ask for... So you're totally unfocused. And this is the one that it will hold you back. It is more an organizational thing. It is more a cultural thing within IT. So if you see an enormous diverse portfolio of activities in IT, where they literally go everywhere, they will remain nicely stuck here in the center of your axis, because they will not move anywhere completely. It doesn't help. So you want to either get another party in to replace your IT department, or you might want to reduce this risk by just reorganizing the portfolio of IT. Then we have this one, the North Korean IT. We always made jokes about this because we had the bring your own device policy at some moment. And then we had the IT guys who decided for the business what the bring your own device would be. They selected, so you can choose the device that I have chosen for you. There's this one, there's this one. And you can choose your own device because I've chosen them for you already. Enjoy. Now, that's not really the bring your own device idea. The idea is you yourself bring your own device and then you do the work. But if there is someone who is authoritative, then or authoritarian, then that will stop. He will also be his own bottleneck, because everything here you see, they're just watching the boss doing something and no one else is doing something. So the boss makes all the decisions and the boss will tell you where we go. So the North Korean IT is usually restricting, and it will be slowing you down. Now, that is only the case, not the case, if you want to have some changes made in IT that are not very popular. So then you might want to exploit the authoritarian leader, because then you can make speed. As for the elephant, there's always elephants in the room, especially if you have your landscape with 6,000 applications or 3,000, then that's definitely an elephant. You cannot just easily slice up and dice up. So there's non-value complexity, as they call it, and usually that is more of an organizational thing, but the moment you start to see an organization that has a functional how shall I say, functional model, but then they have value chains that are completely touching all the functions, then you may assume that you're in for a treat here. There will be, if you ask for the process models in a company like that, there will be 1,000 different points that they touch. And believe me, IT will follow your process, so the IT will be hopelessly complex here. If you can work on this one, that is a very big gain. So look at it from what will, in my future model of operations, what will bring my value? Do I really need it? Okay, throw it out. Now, again, we have the complex IT. You cannot slice up complex IT in one go. You really need a plan to deal with it. This is a very good one from BCG. They place a certain order on things, and this actually works. You also need an architect who understands the building materials of which your IT has been built up, because you cannot just screw a drill rig to a house and then call it well, whatever, your dog shed. Or so you need to know what you can combine, how it works together, and how things actually make the machine that forms your business. And this is only either you throw out the full 6,000 apps and 3,000 apps to an IT service provider that says, okay, I'm a big guy, I can do this for you, and you pay me such. Then you can transfer the whole problem to another party. Or you can try to reduce it, and then you need lists like this and very, very, very clever and very good architects and IT technicians. Duplicate, this is a simple one, but remember the one with the increasing complexity from the beginning. The complexity increases, that means that data usually that was first in one application in your landscape now is in 15 applications in your landscape, and believe me, it will be completely out of sync by the time you have 15 applications using the same data. So you need to deduplicate as many possible soft data and software functions as you can to make life easier. You can do this again by reducing it. If you know how, this is an example where we do the deduplication of data that will be stored for backup. But there's also other patterns that will make you transfer the risk. So you can go to a party that knows how to deduplicate your landscape. And there's an example here on how to define something as unnecessary IT. This is one coming from Gartner. Gartner calls this the Middleout strategy. And what happens is that if you have a few applications in your landscape, say this is your field service worker, this is your ERP, this is your, I don't know, your consolidation or your planning app, you do not need to sync all the data between them. You can just remove all these data because you will have to do BI anyway. So why don't you propagate the data to BI and let these guys directly work on your BI stack? Now, that makes sense. Then again, you need an architect to understand what he is doing and if your BI stack can live with that, because that is not actually meant for this sort of scenario. But yes, it is a very interesting platform, and it definitely helps if ever you are to make changes to your IT landscape and you have a transitory state in which you do not want to invest in a temporary app and you want to clean up your apps, then you can just push back the data to your BI landscape and work from there. The other big elephant is if you have IT doing a lot of tasks and having a broad portfolio, but the capability of the people itself is slow. And indicators are that there is a lot of tickets, the duration of tickets is long, or there's a lack of administration completely, then most likely the capability is not very well organized. Normally, you want to see a very well-organized IT department that is delivering on promise all the time, every time, which is not always the case, I'm afraid to say. So you might want to move up the stack by doing less yourself. And that means that there's all sorts of cloud solutions available at the moment. All the big three, the big five, whatever you take, they all have offerings where you can just take whatever you need without any heavy investment of stuff that you have to organize yourself or that you may have to maintain or manage yourself. So this is an easy one. If you can't do it, if your people are not capable, throw them out, just go up the stack here. Waste, lean, this is the one that is the most interesting if you look from an IT perspective, because very few people look at IT as the production of information. You are a factory that produces information at request in a certain format at a certain time and with a certain interval, whatever. But in doing that, you have data creation, you have data modification, you have data sub-assemblies, you have stocks of intermediate data, you have stocks of final information. And actually, if you look from a logistics perspective to your IT landscape, what is it actually producing? What is it spitting out? And what is it eating? And what are all the steps in between? Can we have fewer of these? Take this lean one and just look at it. And don't forget to really exploit the non-utilized talent in there, because often the people that are not heard are the ones that might help you forward. Let me tell one little thing for risk. The exploit is often looked with some strange regards, as the exploit is not something you would consider with risk. But it is typically what an entrepreneur or a criminal entrepreneur does. Exploitation of risky situations that may have a high payoff. So, okay, if we look at what we can do with the elephant, is that if we have the steps that we've done, then we can also start harvesting results. And by harvesting results, harvest a result whenever it is there. Directly harvest it. Because If you leave it, it will cost you money, it will eat up your budget, it will eat up your attention, it will make your IT department go slow and be muddy again. So really, Harvest, take it out, take it now. By the way, this is a very good McKinsey scheme. Time, as said, it can work in your advantage or it can work against you. This is one saying that I like to repeat. But it can also work against you. Let's look at this. Here it works with you if you're from the medical or from the healthcare sector and you're looking for this sort of functionality to be available. Then Watson, what is a great platform for the more advanced analytics, will definitely help you if this becomes available. On the other hand, if you follow your roadmap, your supplier's roadmap too narrowly, you might end up in a squeeze. We did some quite a while ago with one of the bigger companies that said, oh, for your mobile workers, you need to buy this one because it has all the processes already pre-modeled and you just need to couple it to our software and then you're ready to go. So we follow the hint and we buy the software. And then they buy the next company, which is also in the same realm. And they say, no, actually you can also use this one, but we will merge the two and then we will make a mixed platform. So then you end up to pay 2 times, but actually 3 times because you also have to change between all the steps that your supplier does. So when you follow a supplier roadmap, maybe you should be careful in checking where they are and how sturdy, how decent is their direction. Will they 100% be able to get to their goals if they follow this direction? There's, by the way, plenty you can do with this. You can ignore your supplier's roadmap. That is what quite a few people do, but then unknowingly, that may prove unpleasant at some point in time. Say we have Microsoft and we have SAP. Microsoft is the company that really liberates all sorts of functionality to the general public that can now do nearly everything with Power BI, Power Apps. They can even build applications themselves, so fantastic. But they have another goal as SAP, who is primarily coming from a financial and ERP perspective and is great at that. So somewhere they meet, but somewhere they might want to eat from each other's market share. And that is where it will start to hurt if you are in that area. So you should be very careful and very wary about what your suppliers have in their future roadmaps. It's not to say that everything is bad, because as you saw, it can also be in your advantage. Now, the other one is that we see that things change over time, especially with COVID now. Things are getting more and more digital. We get an enormous push to digital. But if you look at what is at the CIO's agenda, then this is these 4 topics. Empower your workforce because they're at home, but they need the same sort of tooling and they need to make the same sort of results that they do when they are home or when they are in the office. You have to rethink your models of delivery because if you think, for example, at the beginning of COVID, it was nearing Easter, and Lindt, the chocolate maker, they had the idea, oh shit, we have a lot of chocolate here, we cannot sell it because the shops will close. And they had their direct-to-consumer website up in 5 days, 5 working days. And then otherwise they would have been ending up with a lot of chocolate, and the people celebrating Easter would not have anything to celebrate with. The same holds for Kraft, Heinz. They had the same problem. They had their direct-to-consumer channel up in 7 days. So it's really impressive what people can do nowadays to have their business or their channels changed to digital just in days. The deliver new services. So rethink your services is really something that is on the agenda now more than ever. And the optimize operations is, well, coming behind a bit, but there where the digital meets the physical, the interface between the two is something that needs careful studying. I'm quite sure that Amazon can learn you can teach us quite a lot on that. But you need to be very careful that all the channels are coming together in a nice way and that the total logistics of operations, be it digital or physical, are aligned. The manufacturing with 3D printing, that will be bringing some nice perturbances to the normal model, but the manufacturing is also, you can manufacture a service. And we see services more and more becoming the model to go to model. So we might want to make a service that is packaged of a product and financing and insurance and servers. And before you know it, we have a manufacturing process of a continuous service that we receive continuous money flows for. It is you really need to rethink the way that the building blocks of IT will enable you or not in this particular game. Now, as I said in the beginning, the people here on the left are really struggling to go back to what they think is normal. So they need to think about revenue recovery, not as much as these here. I showed you the different strategies you can have to do revenue recovery, but not for everyone revenue recovery is a first. One is that if you have IT as a playing field, there is a lot there. There is Google Maps. So why the heck would you give your people another app that they will have to do their navigation with if this is already there and freely installed on their phone? The other one is there's object recognition. So why would you have your people fill out 20 forms in your ERP systems with all sorts of information where your camera can just identify the part number for you and you just have to scan it with your photo camera of your phone camera. The other one is that there's all sorts of sensors and there's all sorts of measuring devices in your house. Bosch has declared that they want all their appliances to be smart by 2023. That's only 2 years away, roughly. So there will be that many smart things in your home and even in your body, if you look carefully here, then that you can have an interactive environment that if your body temperature says that you're 36.8 degrees instead of the normal 37.2, then the heating in your house will automatically warm up. So there's all sorts of scenarios here that are hardly considered in reshaping IT. And let me tell you, PMI is one of the moments in the life cycle of a company that is really very well positioned to rethink IT, because you have goals. You said you want to have more top line innovation. So rethink it, use what is there, and don't build what is already there. That finally may bring you to where you want to go. So that is hint, please digitize. You see the multiples of Amazon and Walmart. It's maybe not 100% comparable, but let's say that digital platforms sell a lot better than brick and mortar shops today. So you want to go digital wherever you go, wherever you can. Secondly, research indicated that if you spend money on your customer experience, and then most likely digital experience because people start with their phone and their laptops, that is the biggest return you can invest in. So €1 invested in your customer experience earns more money than anywhere else, usually. Maybe not during PMI if you have bottom line synergies also at stake, but this is the one to rethink your whole experience for the customer with the IT underneath it. And then finally, make sure that your workforce is also able to deliver on that promise. Then you might end up with a nicely refreshed digital way of working with your customers, which is the to-go-to platform for your customers. You may save a bunch of money in your IT landscape, and you may end up lean and mean production machine. Thank you.
Many thanks to you, Michael. I think let's now open the stage for questions. That would be good, and probably to give our audience time. You see the first thumbs up are coming up.
Thank you.
First thumbs up are coming up. So let me go back to the Q&A chat. So let's see as to whether we don't have a question yet. So from all of the elements you did present, and we have seen a couple of elements throughout the 2 days, right? But most of in your presentation, what is the actually most dangerous elephant that you told us about?
The most dangerous one is the one where companies will merge, but they will never do the PMI. And they will just peacefully coexist and complicate life for each other eternally.
Yeah, which happens.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few examples.
No, absolutely. So there's another thumb coming up. So obviously your presentation was so crystal clear and pragmatic, you know.
That would be a first time.
There is not really many.
There's a question coming in through the chat box from Julius from Merck. Very interesting. You hinted at IT being underrepresented in due diligence. So what would be your recommendation here? Timing and volume of involvement?
Yeah, definitely. If you don't have a clear to-go-to plan for the direction of your merged company, that is one. And secondly, then you can never have a decent plan for your IT. So you need to go really deep in IT. From day one, you know you will do something with that company. So it is definitely be very, very early and be very precise with the people you have. So more the quality of involvement, I would say, than the volume.
That was the question that came in via the chat. You can use the questions button, the Q&A button, as well as the chat function. Yeah. Thanks, Julius, for asking the question. So with this, I think you covered it nicely. Really, really good. Michael, thank you very much.
Any future predictions on killer IT apps that are coming up in the pipeline that will benefit the business world or an M&A?
Yep, there is one great development that is the no-code and low-code sort of application development platforms. Microsoft moved to that by having the Power Apps platform. And what you see, it will enable the business people, really each of your co-workers to create their own applications easily with no code. So this will be a revolution, and if you're not careful, this will also pass your IT department on the wrong side of the road with the middle finger up. So they really have to deal with this, and they have to give it a place, but it will horribly speed up development of your business capabilities.
Yeah, there's the trend of no code is everywhere, even for small and medium-sized companies. So many things you can do now that you don't need to code for. There's a lot of things that can be created and developed, even design things, website things, apps. I mean, you can make an app now yourself without even coding. There's so many tools out there now. So.
This is what I see in my present assignment, is that there is people that sort of think about their business problems and then they start to innovate, and then they use whatever they find in the app store, left or right, or what they have available. And usually IT would then say no, because they didn't invent it, which is wrong, because there's so many questions coming from the business in the new digital realm that they have to sort of, accommodate. That means that you have to allow them to innovate, to experiment, and you have to make your, I would say, IT set a scope for where IT ends and where the business begins, and where the risk becomes too big for the business to bear, and where you need the specialized knowledge of IT, for example.
Great. We're a little bit over schedule, so I think we have to stop here. But great presentation. Thank you very much. And we look forward. If there's any questions for Michel, they can be asked through private messages or in between sessions, because we have just a couple minutes, 3 or 4 minute break before the last session. So we will reconvene in just a quick moment for the final session of this event. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.